After failing to win over Raphael, the system didn't erase me. Instead, it set me free. In your past life, he died saving you. His last wish was for you to love him in the next life, and you agreed. That's why I was born. In this life, he didn't cherish you. He bullied you and mistreated you, so he deserves to lose you. From today, your debt to him is paid off, and you are free. Harmony Gu, I wish you a life without scum and full of smooth sailing from now on. After the system disappeared, I fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I saw everything that had happened between Raphael and me in our past life. He had pursued me obsessively for over 10 years, learning all my daily routines, the stalls I liked to visit, and the exact time I would return home. One day, on my way to a tutoring session, he followed me as he often did. A car with failed brakes sped towards me, and Raphael pushed me out of the way. He was hit and left barely alive. He died in my arms, using his last breath to make me promise to love him in the next life. I agreed, and I kept that promise. I pursued him for 15 years, enduring humiliation and sacrificing everything for him. I cared for him, catered to his every need, and even shielded him from a falling chandelier at a bar. That incident left me with broken fingers and a head injury that ended my piano career. I could never play again, but Raphael never once thanked me. Instead, he sneered, mocking me with disdain. "Miss Gu, is this your latest attempt to get my attention? What a shame. You only ended up hurting yourself. Your fingers are broken? Ha! That's karma for mocking Anahi's disability. Now you're a little cripple, too." He left me lying on the floor in pain for 2 hours, forbidding anyone from calling for help or an ambulance. He reveled in my agony while I convulsed and cried from the pain. In the end, the bar owner, fearing something terrible would happen, secretly called 911 against Raphael's orders. The system was right. I've paid off my debt. From now on, I am free. I no longer owe Raphael anything. In the hospital room, my brother looked deeply pained. "Do you really like Raphael that much? You were willing to risk your life for him, and now you're in the hospital. Has he even visited you once? He's out there racing cars with those rich second-generation brats, still passed out in some bar. Is it worth it?" I nodded with an easy smile. "Yes, it's worth it. I hate owing people anything, and it feels good to finally repay the debt." My brother didn't understand. "What debt do you owe him?" I just smiled without answering. He sighed. "What are you going to do next? With your right hand like this, you'll have to cancel all your upcoming performances." I replied, "It's okay. I'm planning to become a teacher. I've always wanted to teach, and now I'll just switch from being a piano teacher to an English teacher. It's fine. I'll live a good life." During my hospital stay, I practiced writing with my left hand whenever I had free time. After 2 months, my handwriting was still ugly, but at least it was legible. Just a little bit messy. On the day I was discharged, my entire family came to pick me up. When my parents heard that I was planning to get certified as an English teacher, their eyes turned red with emotion. I patted their hands and said, "It's just a broken finger, not the end of the world. There are many paths in life, and I'll find one that suits me. Don't worry about me." "Harmony, have I ever told you how much your pretentiousness annoys me?" Raphael suddenly emerged from behind me, pushing a wheelchair in which sat Anahi, the adopted daughter of the Shen family. My brother was so furious he wanted to fight Raphael, but I quickly grabbed his arm, shook my head, and got into the passenger seat without sparing Raphael a glance or saying a word. After fastening my seatbelt, Raphael knocked on the window with a cold expression. "Get out!" I ignored him and told my brother to drive. "Damn it, Harmony! If you don't get out right now, don't ever show up in front of me again." I finally met his angry gaze and said seriously, "Don't worry, I won't ever appear in front of you again." He sneered. "Fine, just don't come crawling back with some sappy letter to win me over. Even if you kneel and beg this time, I won't care." I nodded obediently as usual. "Okay." After returning home, I deleted and blocked all of Raphael's contact information, but since we were in the same social circle with many mutual friends, some things were unavoidable. While I was at home studying and practicing my writing, our mutual friends would update me daily about what Raphael had done for Anahi. Yes, Raphael liked his non-blood related sister. In his eyes, Anahi was the most beautiful angel in the world, and I was the villain who had tormented her. Anahi was the daughter of one of Raphael's father's friends. Her parents had died in an accident when she was 3 years old, and the Shen family adopted her. Perhaps in her eyes, Raphael was the only future she could hold on to. Over the years, she had done everything she could to frame and slander me, causing Raphael to misunderstand and despise me, all for her sense of security. The thing Raphael said to me most often was, "Harmony, you're disgusting." Snapping out of my memories, I glanced at the latest message on my phone. Raphael is planning to propose to Anahi. "Miss Gu, are you going to crash the wedding?" I smiled and replied, "There's no need, and you don't need to tell me anything about him anymore." That night, rumors quickly spread that I was heartbroken over Raphael's upcoming marriage and couldn't bear to hear anything about him. It's incredible how fast rumors can travel. My brother, who was on a business trip at the time, heard the rumor and rushed home without even signing his contract. When he saw me relaxing with a face mask on, happily humming to myself, eating fruit, and watching a drama, he was stunned. "Didn't they say you were so depressed over Raphael that you were on the verge of breaking down?" I was puzzled. Rumors shouldn't be trusted. Seeing that I was fine, my brother breathed a sigh of relief. After taking a shower, he tentatively suggested, "I have a childhood friend who has been studying abroad for a long time. He came back last year and now manages his own company while also teaching at a university. He scouts promising talent for his company. Do you want to meet him? He could definitely help you with what you're studying for." I bit my fork. "Is he handsome?" My brother was taken aback, then quickly showed me a photo. Not as handsome as me, but definitely drop-dead gorgeous. Way better looking than that Shen guy. I became interested. He was exactly the elegant, scholarly type I liked. "Sure, if he doesn't have a girlfriend, I'll consider him." My brother slapped his own leg in excitement, wincing in pain. "Great, Kenta would love that." I raised an eyebrow but didn't press further when my brother refused to say more. I arrived at the cafe near a university at the agreed-upon time. Kenta had arrived earlier than me. When I entered, he was sitting in a chair, wearing a well-tailored linen coat, working maturely on his laptop. I watched him for a moment. His appearance was definitely my type. After checking my reflection in the glass door and making sure everything was in order, I walked in. "Hello, I'm Harmony." Kenta removed his glasses, smiled, and extended his hand to me. "Hello, I'm Kenta." After chatting for a while, we got along surprisingly well. He had a calm, steady charm that exuded knowledge and intellect. No matter what I said or asked, he always responded thoughtfully. He was cultured, knowledgeable, and humble, never showing off his talents. As a sapiosexual, I really liked his type. After dinner, he drove me home. As we arrived, he suddenly asked, "Miss Gu, would you like to get engaged to me?" I was a bit taken aback. "What?" He thought for a moment, then said, "Maybe your brother didn't tell you, but the Wu and Gu families have been business partners for a long time. Recently, our families have been discussing an alliance through marriage. You can rest assured, Miss Gu, I have no bad habits, no scandals, and no ex-girlfriends. Marrying me would be beneficial for both you and the Gu family. If you ever fall in love with someone else, I will agree to a divorce." Something about his words made me pause. "Is my family going bankrupt?" He was startled, then slowly smiled. "Not at all. But recently your brother and I are working on a significant business venture that requires a substantial amount of liquid funds. Honestly, it's my family pushing me to marry. They're in a bit of a hurry." After considering his offer, I replied, "All right, I'll marry you. If my brother trusts you, you must be a decent person." On the other hand, I thought, I might never find someone as suitable for marriage as him in this lifetime. Compared to others in our circle, Kenta was by far the best option, like comparing wolves to huskies. When a good opportunity comes along, you have to grab it tightly, especially when it's so rare. I didn't expect Kenta to move so quickly. It was almost as if he had some unspoken reason to rush. Meeting the parents, getting engaged, trying on wedding dresses, and preparing the rings, these things usually take time, but Kenta managed to sort everything out within 2 weeks. Everything he prepared was luxurious and meticulously crafted, clearly not something that could have been done in such a short period. My brother clicked his tongue. It's like he's lost his mind reading those domineering CEO novels where they fall in love after marriage. I was speechless. My brother chuckled. Or maybe he's trying to be the second male lead who finally wins the girl. I was truly at a loss for words. Do you think everyone is like you, hiding in the office all day reading Deep Love for Mr. Wu? My brother blushed. Nonsense. The one I'm reading now is called Mr. Wu Kiss Gently. I facepalmed. What a disgrace to the family. On the day of my engagement to Kenta, the event was packed with guests. Everyone who was anyone in our social circle was there. My parents sent invitations to all our close friends, except for the Shen family. Halfway through the banquet, Raphael showed up uninvited. Kenta was helping me pour drinks for the elders when he noticed Raphael. His brow furrowed slightly, and a flash of anger crossed his eyes before he stepped protectively in front of me. Raphael smiled at me, though it looked more like a grimace. "Aren't you going to pour me a drink?" The atmosphere in the hall suddenly became tense. To avoid embarrassing the Gu family, I had no choice but to address Raphael directly. "Mr. Shen, if you have something to say, we can discuss it privately. Please leave now." Raphael let out a self-mocking laugh, tears welling in his eyes. He walked over and grabbed my hand, his gaze filled with a crazed, obsessive look that reminded me of our past life. "I remember now, Harmony. I remember everything. It was my fault. Let's reconcile, get married, and live a good life together. Please, give me another chance." Kenta quickly grabbed his hand, his expression cold and emotionless, though I heard the sound of bones grinding together. Raphael winced in pain. "Mr. Shen, this is my fiancé." Kenta then turned to me with a gentle smile. "Fiancé, please call security." The whispers around us grew louder as the media took photos. Both the Wu and Gu families were well known, and any negative publicity at a time like this could directly affect their stock prices. Raphael's sorrowful gaze never left me, as if he couldn't believe I would be so heartless as to call security on him. But I would. I had already repaid my debt to him, and to me, he was now nothing more than a stranger I had grown up with. When security arrived, they began escorting Raphael out. He kept muttering things about our past life, but everyone around us just thought he was crazy. Only I knew he was telling the truth. Kenta's hand rested gently but firmly on my waist. He coldly instructed the security, "Gag him and drag him out." They stuffed something into Raphael's mouth to silence him and dragged him away. A perfectly good engagement banquet had been ruined by Raphael's presence, and the lively atmosphere never fully returned after that. The entire banquet hall had been meticulously supervised by Kenta himself. A photographer followed us throughout the event, documenting everything to create a vlog for both families to look back on in the future. But thanks to Raphael's interruption, the smiles on everyone's faces were a bit strained. After the engagement banquet, Kenta drove me back to the Gu family home. As I sat in the passenger seat, I carefully chose my words to apologize to him. "About what happened today, He cut me off, his well-defined fingers tapping the steering wheel, his voice steady. "It was my fault for not briefing the security team in advance. I'm sorry you had a bad engagement experience. I promise you, on our wedding day, nothing like this will happen again." I was at a loss for words. Rumors about Raphael and me had been swirling for a while. I couldn't believe Kenta hadn't heard anything. And Raphael," he interrupted me again, his mood clearly not great, but he softened his tone when speaking to me. "Fiancé," he emphasized the word lifetime. Compared to others in our circle, Kenta was the best option by far, like comparing wolves to huskies. When a good opportunity comes along, you have to grab it tightly, especially when it's so rare. I didn't expect Kenta to move so fast. It was almost as if he had some unspeakable reason to rush. Meeting the parents, getting engaged, trying on wedding dresses, and preparing the rings. These things usually take time, but Kenta managed to organize everything within 2 weeks, and everything he prepared was luxurious and meticulously crafted, clearly not something that could be done on short notice. My brother clicked his tongue, amused. It's like he's lost his mind, reading those domineering CEO novels where they fall in love after marriage. I was speechless, but my brother chuckled. Or maybe he's trying to be the second male lead who finally wins the girl. I rolled my eyes. "Do you think everyone is like you, hiding in the office all day, reading Deep Love for Mr. Wu?" My brother blushed. "Nonsense. The one I'm reading now is called Mr. Wu Kisses Gently." I facepalmed. What a disgrace to the family. On the day of my engagement to Kenta, the event was packed with guests. Everyone who mattered in our circle was there. My parents sent invitations to all our close friends, except the Shen family. Halfway through the banquet, Raphael showed up uninvited. Kenta was helping me pour drinks for the elders when he noticed Raphael. His brow furrowed slightly, and a flash of anger crossed his eyes as he stepped protectively in front of me. Raphael gave me a smile, though it looked more like a grimace. "Aren't you going to pour me a drink?" The atmosphere in the hall suddenly froze. To avoid causing embarrassment to the Gu family, I had no choice but to ask him to leave. "Mr. Shen, if you have something to say, we can discuss it privately. Please leave now." He laughed bitterly, tears streaming down his face as he walked over and grabbed my hand with an obsessive look in his eyes. It reminded me of our past life. I remember now, Harmony. I remember everything. It was my fault. Let's reconcile, get married, and live a good life together. Please, give me another chance. Kenta intervened, grabbing Raphael's hand with an expressionless face. I could hear the sound of bones grinding together, and Raphael winced in pain. "Mr. Shen, this is my fiancé," Kenta said, turning to me with a gentle smile. "Fiancé, please call security." The whispers around us grew louder, and I noticed the media taking pictures. Both the Wu and Gu families were well known, and any negative publicity at a time like this could directly impact their stock prices. Raphael's sorrowful gaze never left me. He couldn't believe I was going to call security to have him removed, but I was. I had already repaid my debt to him. He was nothing more than a stranger I once knew. When security arrived, they began escorting Raphael out. He continued muttering about our past life, but everyone around us just thought he was crazy. Only I knew he was telling the truth. Kenta's hand rested on my waist, gentle but firm, as he coldly instructed the security, "Gag him and drag him out." Something was stuffed into Raphael's mouth to silence him, and he was dragged away. A perfectly good engagement banquet was ruined by Raphael's interruption, and the lively atmosphere never fully returned. After the engagement banquet, Kenta drove me back to the Gu family home. As I sat in the passenger seat, I carefully chose my words to apologize to him. "About what happened today, He cut me off, his well-defined fingers tapping the steering wheel, his voice steady. "It was my fault for not briefing the security team in advance. I'm sorry you had a bad engagement experience. I promise you that on our wedding day, nothing like this will happen again." I was at a loss for words. The rumors about Raphael and me had been swirling for a while, and I couldn't believe Kenta hadn't heard anything. "I and Raphael—" He interrupted me again, his mood clearly affected, but his tone softened when he spoke to me. "Fiancé," he emphasized the word. "The past is the past. I hope you can look forward to our future." Then his voice grew even gentler. "Our bright future. I will be a good husband and eventually a good father. You can trust me because I love you." His sudden and direct confession took me by surprise. "We've only known each other for half a month," I said incredulously. "How can you say you love someone you've just met? Love shouldn't be so cheap." Kenta let out a bitter laugh. "We've known each other for 14 years, Harmony. You just forgot. No, I should say you never remembered, but that's okay. We have plenty of time. I can wait." As the car drove through the cool, stifling rain towards the Gu family villa, despite his bad mood, Kenta still gentlemanly opened the door for me and held the umbrella until I was safely inside. My brother invited him to stay the night, but Kenta left soon after, wishing me a good night and sweet dreams. His figure gradually disappeared into the dark night, raindrops dusting his chiseled features. My brother leaned in and asked, "Did you two have a fight?" I denied it. "No," he clicked his tongue. "Kenta rarely gets this moody." I couldn't help but ask, did I know him before? My brother looked at me in disbelief. "I'm only 2 grades ahead of you. He was with me every day at school. Every time you came to find me for lunch, the food you ate, the water you drank, and the snacks you took away were all prepared by him. Don't tell me you don't remember any of it." I was silent for a moment, then jumped to my feet. "Weren't all those things prepared by you?" I vaguely remembered there always being a guy around my brother, but I never paid much attention to him. At that time, I was wholly focused on winning over Raphael. I didn't have time to notice other men. My brother looked deeply ashamed. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize that in your mind I was so capable. I'm truly embarrassed." I didn't know what to say. I had thought this marriage was simply a mutually beneficial arrangement, a union of two families. After marriage, Kenta and I could at least treat each other with respect. Maybe, if we were lucky, we might even develop some affection over time. My brother smirked mischievously. "You've been eating the Wu family's food for free all these years. It's time to pay off your debt." Thinking of Kenta's tightly pressed lips and the sadness hidden behind his calm expression, a strange feeling crept into my heart. Clearly, I didn't reject my brother's words. In fact, I was quite willing to act on them. The next morning when I woke up, Kenta had already sent me a message asking if I was awake. A few days ago, we had planned to visit our high school to take some commemorative photos in preppy-style outfits. I replied to his message, and he told me he was on his way to pick me up, saying he would arrive in about half an hour. As I was getting ready, I received a friend request from Anahi with a note saying, "Let's talk." Ever since I left the hospital, I had removed everyone associated with Raphael from my social circle. Just then, the housekeeper knocked on my door, asking what to do with the pile of Lego sets in the study. Those were the ones Raphael had given me for my birthday, but they were merely gifts of obligation with no sentimental value behind them. He had grown tired of them, casually packed them up, and given them to me. In my foolish attempt to earn his favor, I had spent half a month assembling them, even buying a special display case to protect them. Despite my efforts, Raphael saw my work and mocked me to our mutual friends, saying, "Even the garbage I don't want is a treasure to her. There's no one more pathetic than Harmony." I accepted Anahi's friend request, and she sent me a location to meet. I asked the housekeeper to pack up everything Raphael had ever given me, with the intention of returning it all to him. I was determined to cut all ties. For over a decade, my life had revolved around Raphael. I shared in his joys and sorrows. When he was happy, I was happy. When he was upset, I tried to cheer him up. But in the end, all I got from him was a dismissive comment. "Oh, Harmony, she's been clinging to me since birth. She's a real simp and pretty pathetic too." I wondered if he remembered how, back when we were children, I had stood up for him when he was bullied, waited for him after school so we could walk home together, and took him to the hospital when he was sick. I spent all my pocket money buying him things his family couldn't. He had been so sweet back then, always saying, "Sister, you're so good to me. When I grow up, I'll be good to you too." I didn't know when it all changed, when he stopped caring, stopped liking me, and started despising me. He no longer called me sister, no longer waited for me, and even lashed out at me. He had gone from holding my hand with a smile to shaking me off coldly and asking if I had no shame. Everyone told me Raphael was just going through a rebellious phase and that he'd grow out of it, but I had grown tired of waiting. Thankfully, it was all over now. I no longer had to be shameless. As Kenta watched the housekeeper load Raphael's belongings into the trunk, filling it to the brim, he asked curiously, "Are these props for the photo shoot?" I answered bluntly, "No, we're going to see Raphael first." Before Kenta could protest, I quickly explained, "The trunk is full of everything Raphael ever gave me. I'm giving it all back. I won't have any more contact with him, I promise. I really don't like him anymore." Since Kenta had watched me grow up, he naturally knew about all the foolish things I had done for Raphael. No wonder he had been so sensitive when I mentioned Raphael earlier. He understood my past better than anyone. He didn't want to relive my feelings for another man. But I had to show him that I was done with Raphael for good. I needed to remove the thorn in his heart myself. "I believe you," Kenta said. He opened the car door for me but didn't close it. Instead, he leaned in, meeting my gaze. His voice was low and slightly shaky. "Then, would you try to like me? I don't ask for much, just a little more each day, and that would be enough." His fingers tightened and relaxed around the car door, as though unsure of what to do. Even though Kenta was now a successful professor and president of Wu Corporation, he still seemed as nervous as a teenager with a secret crush. Before I could respond, he quickly added, "It's okay if you can't. We have plenty of time, right? Plenty of time." He awkwardly moved to close the door, but I stopped him, grabbing his hand. "There's no need to try, Kenta. I do like you. Maybe it's not love yet, but you've definitely made me like you. I'll try to love you. Just give me some time." There wouldn't be another person who fit my aesthetic as perfectly as Kenta did, both inside and out. He was someone who knew how to grow on you, Good, he replied softly. He held back the urge to embrace me, instead making a solemn promise. I'll make sure you see my love. When I entered the private room for my meeting, Anahi was nowhere to be seen. Raphael sat alone on the sofa, looking unwell, clearly having waited a long time. I wasn't surprised by Anahi's absence. After all, this had been arranged by Raphael under her name. He always found ways to manipulate things to his advantage. Kenta and I brought in the items from the trunk and placed them in front of Raphael. When he saw the completed Lego set, his eyes filled with emotion. I methodically took out the other items from the bag. This stone is from my 18th birthday, which you picked up from the roadside. Back then, you accused me of throwing such a big birthday party just to mock Anahi. I'm the daughter of the Gu family. Whether Anahi was there or not, my coming-of-age ceremony would have been grand. Anahi's misfortunes weren't caused by me, and you shouldn't have taken it out on me. Raphael bit his lip and kept his head down, staring at me without speaking. This card is from the pair of Jordan sneakers you bought me. I think it was your gift for my 20th birthday, but I don't really remember. Today, I'm returning all of this to you. I placed the items on the table in front of him. It's over, Raphael. I won't cling to you anymore. Don't let the memories of another lifetime fool you into thinking you can change things. It's all in the past. I turned to leave, taking Kenta's hand in mine. As I was about to walk out, Raphael stood up from the sofa, losing control. You never really liked me, let alone loved me. Your heart was never in it, and that's why you couldn't win me over. Harmony, you're a heartless woman. I stopped in my tracks. After all the pain and heartbreak, I was finally ready to confront what I had avoided for so long. Raphael, you're wrong. I did like you. But after that night at the bar, when I cracked my skull and broke my fingers, teetering on the edge of death for hours while you laughed, you became a shadow in my heart. I had to convince myself that I didn't like you, that someone as awful as you couldn't be worth loving. You weren't worth it? I tightened my grip on Kenta's hand, feeling my throat close with emotion. But I do remember the past. I remember how timid you were, yet you fought off a wild dog to protect me, even though you got bitten. When we were kidnapped and they wanted to cut off my fingers to send to my family, you offered yours instead. That's why you lost your little finger. Even then, you comforted me, saying that your hand wasn't worth much and that my hands, as a pianist, were more valuable than your life. I looked at him, my eyes filled with both sadness and resolve. Raphael, show some respect for your past self. Back then, you were worth loving. You had my love, whether the system was there or not. Those feelings from that time will never change. Tears streamed down his face as he choked out, "What about now? What about now, Harmony?" I held Kenta's hand even tighter, intertwining our fingers. Now, Raphael can watch my fingers get broken and still laugh about it with his friends. The Raphael I loved died a long time ago. Raphael collapsed onto the floor, bottles and glasses tumbling down around him, shattering into pieces. His tears fell uncontrollably as he lay there, broken. I turned back and smiled at him through my own tears. From now on, if we ever meet again, you should call me Mrs. Wu. Let's both maintain our dignity. Anahi is a pitiable person. All her malice toward me stems from her insecurities. Since you've already announced your engagement to her, you should take responsibility. Don't let her become a laughingstock. Her pride won't survive it. I wish you a happy marriage, Mr. Shen. Kenta and I left the private room, and as soon as we stepped outside, we heard the heart-wrenching cries coming from within. After Kenta and I left the private room, I could still hear Raphael's heart-wrenching cries coming from within. It was painful, but I reminded myself that I had to let go. The past was behind me now. As we got into the car, Kenta handed me a bottle of water, the cap already opened, and asked, "Do you still want to take the photos today?" "Of course," I said with a small smile. I picked up the little dress I had prepared earlier and showed it to him. "Isn't it pretty?" His eyes lit up as he smiled back. "It's beautiful." Suddenly, he leaned in and hugged me tightly. "It's all behind us now. From now on, I'll handle everything. Whatever Raphael could do for you, I can do too. But I promise you, I'll never turn bad or change my heart." I closed my eyes and nuzzled against his neck, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "I know, My brother had told me many stories about Kenta from the past. When I didn't know, Kenta had been silently doing so many things for me. He had taken care of the bullies who harassed me at school. During my senior year, when I had to walk through a long, dark alley to get home, Kenta would quietly follow me from his university until I reached my family's car. He had always been there, clearing obstacles from my path without me even knowing. What I thought was a youth full of random kindness had actually been carefully planned by someone who cared for me deeply. Now that Kenta had finally started to openly express his love, I realized how much he had risked by keeping it hidden for so long. His love was patient, waiting for the right time. As we passed the school's sports field on the way to the photo shoot, Kenta suddenly smiled. "Do you remember in our senior year we played a basketball game against the freshmen? I was the lead player. During practice, Raphael sprained his ankle, and you ran over glaring at me so angry. I was worried you were mad at me." I tried to recall, but all I could remember was Raphael getting hurt. Then, at lunch, you came to eat with your brother. You saw the chicken leg on my plate and without hesitation asked me if you could have it. Kenta continued with a chuckle. "Harmony, we saw each other every day back then, but you don't remember a single moment involving me." I shook my head, trying to grasp at the memories, but there was nothing. It was like Kenta had never existed in my past. He ruffled my hair gently. "Maybe heaven took pity on me. Now you can finally remember me, and you won't forget me again." I thought about the system that had disappeared and realized that perhaps my lost memories of Kenta were caused by some external force. It was hard to fathom the depth of Kenta's unrequited love all those years. He endured my indifference, smiling whenever I told him goodnight, only to hear me ask the next morning, "Classmate, what's your name again? What's your relationship with my brother?" My clueless brother had thought it was just a quirky way Kenta and I greeted each other, but for Kenta, it was devastating. He had gone from disbelief to despair, only to gradually accept the situation. Every day he patiently reintroduced himself to me, even though I would forget him again the next day. I looked at him with regret and apologized. "I'm sorry." Kenta laughed lazily, his eyes slowly reddening. "What's there to apologize for? My crush is like the Little Mermaid. Cool, right?" As my wedding with Kenta approached, the media began covering the event extensively. Some troublemakers dug up my past with Raphael, and a few former classmates anonymously shared stories in the comment sections. I called my brother asking for help with public relations. But before my brother could take action, Raphael posted on Weibo, admitting, "It was my reckless youth and ignorance. All the blame lies with me, not her." Don't you want to criticize someone? Mock someone? My comment section isn't closed. I'm such a big scumbag. Why won't you criticize me? Come at me. People were stunned, thinking Raphael had lost his mind. Over the years, Raphael had amassed quite a few fans from his racing career. Everyone knew about my relentless pursuit of him, and this was the first time Raphael had responded in this way. People even began asking in the comments if his wedding with Anahi was also approaching. He replied, "Anahi is my sister and the heir to half of the Shen family's assets." I stared at his reply for a long time, feeling an uneasy chill creep down my spine. A sense of dread began to settle in, but I couldn't pinpoint why. On the day of my wedding with Kenta, the event was grand. I was worried about Raphael's past extreme behaviors, but the ceremony went smoothly, without him making any appearance. Late that night, after the guests had left, a little girl approached me with a message. "That brother asked me to give this to you. He stayed in the car outside all day. He told me to tell you, Miss Gu, congratulations on your wedding." The child's innocent voice was clear and sweet. I accepted the gift box and looked outside, where all that remained were a pile of cigarette butts. Inside the gift box was a pair of jade bracelets with a string of peace charms attached. The note inside, written in Raphael's handwriting, read, "My name, Harmony," in an intricate and delicate script. But when it came to the word wedding, the writing became hurried, shaky, and uneven. The strokes were weak and inconsistent, the word barely legible. Happiness was written smoothly, but compared to the other words, it seemed like an afterthought, added in haste, disconnected. I closed the box and glanced outside. In the distance, beyond the trees, I could barely make out a dark figure dressed in black, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. The sadness in my heart grew heavier, and I didn't know where it was coming from. Raphael had dressed up and stayed outside all day, but in the end he didn't even dare to come see me. This was the outcome I had wanted. I shouldn't have felt sad, but my emotions surged from nowhere, fierce and uncontrollable. I lifted my dress and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. The heavy sound echoed in the silence, a reminder that we were now in two different worlds. After that, I never saw Raphael again, nor did I hear any news about him. All I knew was that he had gone abroad to find a renowned painter for Anahi, someone famous even outside the country. After months of effort and financial investment, he convinced the painter to take Anahi as their last disciple. Beyond that, I knew nothing more. Kenta treated me very well. Every day after our marriage felt like a new beginning. In the mornings, he prepared breakfast for me before leaving for work. And after I woke up, he would either head to his school or his company. He took on the role of teacher, helping me improve my English and French. On pleasant afternoons, we sat together in our garden, drinking tea. His voice was calming, and I enjoyed listening to him read from the books on his bookshelf. When it snowed, we would sit by the window, watching the flakes drift down. Life was beautiful. There couldn't have been a better life. 2 years later, I gave birth to a daughter. A few months after that, one evening, the property management called to inform me that a man with the surname Shen was asking to see us. Kenta and I went to the entrance together, where we saw Raphael. He looked worn out, no longer the dazzling figure he once was. The youthful energy that had once defined him was gone, replaced by a quiet, mature steadiness. "I heard you had a child," Raphael said nervously, holding a small box in his hands. His gaze flickered between me and Kenta. "May I see her?" "Just once. I won't do anything." They showed me photos. "She's a very cute little girl." Kenta stepped aside. "Come in." Raphael borrowed our bathroom, showered, and disinfected himself before joining us in the nursery. He stood by the cradle, staring at our daughter, his expression softening as he gazed at her. He reached out, but before he could touch her, he pulled his hand back, uncertain. Tears began to fall uncontrollably, and he quickly left the room. As he handed the box to Kenta, his voice trembled. "I missed her 1-month gift, so I made up for it. I also added gifts for her 10th and 18th birthdays. She's beautiful, just like her mother, and she looks a lot like you too." I never imagined the obsessive, reckless Raphael would show this side of himself. He even spoke to Kenta with calmness and respect. After Raphael left, Kenta opened the box. Inside was a pair of gold bracelets, a peace lock, a jade Buddha, and a blessed charm. I thought of Raphael, who had traveled all this way, his knees soaked through with mud. That overwhelming sense of unease returned to me, and Kenta wrapped his arms around me, silently comforting me. When my daughter was almost a year old, Kenta sent an invitation to Raphael for her birthday party. But instead of Raphael, it was Anahi who delivered the response. She brought a letter from Raphael, along with a surveillance video. In the letter, Raphael confessed, "When I realized I was just a character in this story, my entire life's path was already predetermined. I couldn't control my emotions or whom I loved. Everything I did was dictated by something beyond my will. I couldn't change the events that had already happened, but I could choose my own ending." The video showed Raphael letting go of a burning sparkler in his hand and jumping from a tall building, his thin figure tearing through the air like paper. "I'm tired of this body doing things against my will." Raphael would never not love harmony. Raphael will always love harmony. My legs gave out, and I collapsed, overwhelmed by grief and sorrow. I was like a mute child, unable to speak, unable to comprehend the cruelty of it all. Raphael would rather die than let me love someone else without the weight of our past. At Raphael's funeral, I saw Anahi sitting in her wheelchair, though she looked entirely different from the obsessive, malicious girl she had once been. Her gaze was vacant as she stared at Raphael's portrait. "Last night, I had a dream," Anahi said softly. "I dreamt I was the villainess in a tragic romance novel, doing all kinds of evil to drive a wedge between the male and female leads. I pretended to be innocent, making the male lead believe he loved me while tormenting the female lead until she died. Only then did the male lead realize he had always loved her, and he killed me to avenge her. How ridiculous!" Her fingers curled around the white rose she was holding. But last night, it wasn't just me. Kenta and you had the same dream, didn't you? We saw the endings we were supposed to have. Kenta was the second male lead, loving the heroine all his life. But she was written to never remember him. Even after he died for her, she still didn't remember him. As for the male lead, Raphael, his character broke down. In the beginning, he loved me. In the middle, there were endless misunderstandings. And in the end, he realized too late. After I died, he went mad. Anahai sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. Raphael was the first to wake up. He defied the path set for him and chose to love you. He gave me a better ending, allowing me to see a world beyond my wheelchair. Who says that characters in a book have no self-awareness? She held back her tears. Next month, I'm holding an art exhibition. I hope you can come. We all need to live well. That's what Raphael would have wanted. I placed my white rose in front of Raphael's portrait, my vision blurred with tears. I heard my own hoarse, choked voice say, "All right,